It's already week 10. It's time to start thinking playoffs in fantasy football. Hi, and welcome to the Fantasy Football Series at CBSSports.com. I'm Amber Wilson, and this is Stardom and Situm. The New England Patriots, fresh off their huge win in Indianapolis, are practically a shoo-in for the postseason, as are most of the owners of their top guns, Tom Brady and Randy Moss. But those owners will have to look elsewhere in Week 10 as the Patriots get a well-deserved week off, which is good news for the other 31 teams in the NFL, but most unfortunate for fantasy owners. Also with the week off, you've got the Houston Texans, New York Jets, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who combined have just one more victory than the New England Patriots. Priest Holmes has been mostly out of action since October of 2005 when he suffered a neck and head injury. At the time, he was splitting time with Larry Johnson in one of the most productive backfields in the NFL. Since the injury, Johnson has become one of the best rushers in the NFL and one of the first running backs off fantasy draft boards. Week 10, it will be Priest Holmes taking advantage of a Larry Johnson injury to once again become the Chiefs' featured back. Holmes used to be the top fantasy player in the game when he was healthy, a different back than Larry Johnson. He's not going to pound it up the middle, more likely to work the outside and catch passes out of the backfield. From 2001 to 2005, Holmes ran for almost 100 yards a game and scored more than one touchdown per game. And in 2003, he scored 27 TDs. And we welcome into the show senior fantasy football writer Jamey Eisenberg. So, Jamey, do you expect Priest Holmes to come back with a vengeance this weekend?
Well, Amber, I don't know vengeance is the right word, but certainly it's good to see him back on the field and, getting his chance to play again because I know he's really wanted it, and certainly fantasy owners have been excited about the proposition since he's been given clearance to practice and play. He had a 2-point conversion last week against the Packers when Larry Johnson got hurt, and he has a great matchup this week against the Broncos just because Denver can't stop anybody. So I think if you're looking at it, this is a good 1 week to see how he's going to do. Consider him probably a good sleeper this week, but also keep an eye on Colby Smith just because the rookie's going to get some action as well. And given Priest Holmes' history and the fact that he hasn't played very much, it could be a good situation for Colby Smith to get some reps also.
It's a great story that Holmes can play at all.
Exactly.
Again, so so you want him starting this week. You also want Marshawn Lynch and Cedric Benson. That's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to a lot of people. But the thing is, if Ron Dane can run for over 100 yards against Oakland's defense, I think Cedric Benson, who's been a huge disappointment this year, should have the opportunity to play well this week also, just because the matchup's in his favor. I know a lot of Bears fans are really disappointed in Cedric Benson. They're seeing, even Thomas Jones struggle with the Jets, but they miss having those two guys together. So we could possibly start to see Adrian Peterson, not the good one, the other one for the Bears, start to get in the mix as well. But I think this week Cedric Benson should have the opportunity to play well.
I don't know if I'd want to be known as not the good Adrian Peterson. But your sit running backs this week, Ryan Grant, Jamal Lewis, and Maurice Jones-Drew.
Yeah, Maurice Jones-Drew's sort of been a disappointment this year. Dave Richard and myself, we had him pegged as a bust this year just because it was hard to live up to the expectations of what he put up stat-wise last year. But this week's just a tough matchup for him. Tennessee's defense is #1 in defending the run. Albert Haynesworth is probably the best defensive lineman, best defensive tackle in the NFL right now. He's just blowing up offensive line. So Maurice Jones-Drew is going to find running space a little bit difficult. He always has a chance to take one the distance, which is a good situation for him. But I think just the matchup doesn't favor him, so you probably want to sit him.
Right. Okay, moving on to quarterbacks, you went Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, and Mark Bulger starting this week.
Yeah, Mark Bulger's been one of those guys, another one that's been a huge disappointment this year, but plays great indoors. He's averaging about 285 yards indoors. As we know, the Saints play in the Dome, so it's a good matchup for him. And again, looking at guys that performed well last week against these defenses, Quinn Gray throws for 354 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Saints defense, which can't really stop anybody defending the pass. So Mark Bulger also has a good history coming off bye weeks. Should do well here, so I think you get him back in your lineup.
This is kind of interesting to me. You went Mark Bulger starting, and you went Derek Anderson sitting this week, in addition to Phillip Rivers and Donovan McNabb.
Yeah, this is just one of those matchup situations. Most people can't afford to sit Derek Anderson at this point, the way he's playing, but I think if you have a better option, this is the way to go, just because Pittsburgh's defense is tremendous. They're great at home. They're going to frustrate Anderson. He hasn't seen really a defense of this caliber. He faced the Steelers a little bit in Week 1 when he came on for an ineffective Charlie Fry, but I just think if you have a better option this week, it's the way to go. Just you could expect Anderson probably throw a couple touchdowns, but a few interceptions as well.
Okay, moving on to your start wide receivers, you want to start Santonio Holmes, Greg Jennings, and Lee Evans.
Yeah, Lee Evans is the guy I think you want to look at here, just because he is playing great right now. I spoke to Dick Duran and Marshawn Lynch this week, and they're just raving about the offense and the way it's clicking right now. J.P. Losman gets another start. He has such a good rapport with Lee Evans, and the interesting thing about Evans is, he starts to have that late season surge a little bit earlier each year since his rookie season. And so this year it's starting at the end of October, beginning of November, playing against a Dolphins defense that really can't stop anybody, especially in the secondary. So I like Evans a lot this week, and I think he continues his hot streak.
Okay, and your sit wide receivers this week, Brandon Stokely, Ron Curry, and Chris Chambers.
Yeah, Chris Chambers and Lee Evans, friends back from their days in Wisconsin.
Yep.
They've kept in touch. Evans has a home down here in South Florida. Obviously, Chris Chambers used to when he played with the Dolphins, but just a bad matchup. The Colts, I think, are going to be a little bit angry after losing that game to New England. Phillip Rivers struggled last week in a matchup that was in his favor, playing against Minnesota, and I think it's going to continue this week. Even though they're at home, I just don't see Chambers and that offense getting going this week. If anything, it's LT and Antonio Gates. That's about it.
Okay, well, thanks for all of your advice, as always, Jamey, and that'll
My
do
pleasure.
it for us for now. Keep your mouths right here at CBSSports.com for everything you need to know in the world of sports, and of course, everything you need to know in fantasy football as the playoffs approach. If you missed anything here today, start, refresh, and rewatch. For Jamey Eisenberg, I'm Amber Wilson, and good luck with your lineup. Basketball?